Still, we can get you one.
Sanders taking a shot, got a man! Room service, touchdown! Hunter!
Yo, what's up, guys? My name is Oliver Hayes alongside Harrison Simeon, and we are back for episode 8 of the Scobo SportsCast. And, it's Sunday now, and yesterday was a very eventful day in the Big 12 with the Buffs on a bye week. I know we still have to talk about Cincinnati, among other things. So, let's get into it.
Yeah, we took a little bit of a half bye week this time around. Usually we record about the middle of the week. Now we're Sunday. We had a week of college football to watch, and some good things happened for the Buffs since their win last week over Cincinnati. Obviously, that game putting them into bowl eligibility, and that was a game where they had control for the majority of it. They A lot of good things happened, and we saw a lot of good out of both the offense and the defense. And moving forward to play Texas Tech, they actually gave the Buffs some help this past weekend with a huge win over Iowa State, as well as Kansas State falling via the Houston Cougars. So that leaves CU right there, tied for second in the Big 12. So plenty of positive things right now, though obviously it would be foolish for the Buffs to get ahead of themselves. So what are you looking forward to for this week when the Buffs face Texas Tech, and what's been your reflection point on everything that's happened since the Cincinnati win?
I mean, honestly, I haven't thought about much. I've just, I don't know, kind of just been relishing in the fact that the Buffs are good as they as good as they are. It's crazy to me every week that goes by that the Buffs are still producing and have not really given anybody to anything this season to really worry about outside of that Nebraska loss. And so I've been thinking about that a lot. And at the moment it feels like the Buffs are kind of indestructible. Even that Kansas State loss, it didn't really feel like a loss. Just with how the way that they played, and how close the game was, and how Kansas State kind of just stole it back at the end of the game. And so I don't know. I think for this game, especially for the Buffs, it's just about riding momentum. Um, it will be on the road, so I think that would be kind of interesting. But as we've seen since Nebraska, the Buffs have been quite dominant on the road. Um, looking at it, have they lost a game by? What's the most amount of points that they've won a game, or least amount of points that they won a game by since losing to Nebraska? Like.
Yeah, I was about to see their point differential since that game. I mean, their point differential since then has probably been, I don't even know.
Yeah, that's too much math for me. But either way, like Colorado State, 28-9. Uh, that was a 28-9 victory. UCF 48-21. Arizona 34-7. And Texas Tech, obviously they're a much better team than Colorado State. They've put together their wins in conference play. So,
Yeah, that
that
win
win's
looks all right though.
looking a lot better. Arizona, of course, has been struggling, and they lost yesterday by a lot. They got mashed. Um, but either way, the Buffs have been solid on the road, so that may not be a factor against this Texas Tech team. And I know I've been rambling on and on, but I think really the biggest thing that I've been looking at, and thinking about specifically about this Texas Tech team, is just how how does this defense look, and can their offense just match up with the Buffs offense? Because just statistically, they've allowed the most points. I think they're allowing 34 points per game. Which is the worst in the Big 12, and the Buffs are only allowing 22 points per game. So, the Buffs have a much better defense, but obviously Texas Tech, they've been solid. They've picked up steam as of late, and they've won some high scoring battles. And obviously, yesterday against Iowa State wasn't as high scoring as we've seen with them, but I think it would just be, I don't know. I think it would be a shootout. We haven't seen too many low scoring games with the Buffs in the Dion era, and so I don't know. I've just been thinking about uh, gosh, we've talked about so many teams at the moment. I'm getting them all mixed up. The Texas Tech, their offense, I've been, just really wondering about how solid they can be and what they'll do against CU.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what Texas Tech is as a team, and you have to look, it's like the offensive rankings, top to bottom, and the defensive rankings are next to it. You're just going in a straight diagonal line because they're first in points per game and first in points allowed. They are used to that shootout mentality, and they've been able to rattle off 6 wins to just 3 losses. Or yeah, 6 wins to just 3 losses, including a 4-2 conference play record. And while, both of those conference losses were to teams they are most likely better than, especially against Baylor, giving up 59 points at home. Definitely something to take note of, though they've had some shootouts that they've been able to win, like against Cincinnati and a little bit against Arizona. I don't know if 28-22 is really a shootout in this day and age, but they can just put up points. They can rack up points. And it starts though, unlike most high-powered offenses, from their run game. Because Taj Brooks, though they come out in a lot of gun, they play a lot of shotgun, spreading out their offense to spread out the defense. That opens up to just kind of eat into the interior. He's up to 1,000 rushing yards this season, which I don't know how many other running backs besides him and Genty have 1,000 yards. I think maybe he's definitely in the top 10. I know that. He's he's had an amazing collegiate career. He's had 100 yards in every game he's played. So, the Buffs know he's going to get his pretty much every time. And so when the Buffs have had to deal with high-powered running backs, it's been a struggle this year. But I think with the way the Red Raiders have their run offense structured, with it being very east to west, Brooks just being a super hard guy to take down, it's going to be, I guess, in my opinion, to the advantage of CU. I think what they struggle with is when you have a running back like DJ Giddens, where it's downhill, where it's under center, where the Buffs are forced to really wrap up and play super physical. Obviously, they have a ton of physical players that can fit into run gaps and play in the run defense well, as we've seen. That's been one of the biggest keys to their success this year, has been defending the run. But for a team like Texas Tech, it's going to be somebody where you almost have no hope of contain. You just have to contain him. You have no hope of really stopping him. He has 10 touchdowns, averages about 5 yards a carry. So, um, all you have to do is just hope that he's inefficient and that you can just limit him to, four every time around, and then, I stay ahead of the sticks on both offense and defense, and just bringing bring Texas Tech into second and long, third and longs. Because if you just let Brooks run down your throat, it's going to be a long day for the defense. I know I'm also kind of rambling, but for the Buffs, I mean, you look at the Big 12 standings again, it's balanced. It's sixth in offense, sixth in defense. So while we haven't seen any of uh, an insane amount of high flying offensive performances this season, or super shutdown defensive performances, the balance has helped Colorado become this formidable threat in the Big 12 that we now see just, tie for second. So I think for the Buffs to win, it starts at the point of attack, at the run game, at the line of scrimmage. Um, Much capable of doing that just with how Texas Tech is structured and how the Buffs are structured as well.
Yeah, I think I kept thinking about Taj Brooks and you bringing him up. I looked at the Big 12 rushing leaders and he's actually second behind RJ Harvey who has 1,200 rushing yards, but obviously the Buffs, were solid against him and UCF in the UCF offense. Cam Scatabo, he's third. He just surpassed 1,000 yards yesterday. So, you know, to get to that point, I guess. I don't know. There's no real significance with the 1,000 yard mark in this case, but either way, the Buffs they've been a lot better against the run, and east to west, as you said, that's definitely been you know, when facing backs like that are, um, yeah, not downhill or running through the gaps, I think, or through the linemen, they've done a lot better this season, and so I don't know. I haven't watched Texas Tech and Taj Brooks as much as some of the other Big 12 teams. So I'd have to see exactly how, like I said, how their offense works and how they're able to be so, you know, have an offensive and defensive unit that are such polar opposites as far as production. Um, so I don't know. It will, Taj Brooks will get his, like you said, but the Buffs, they've faced a lot of teams that have really focused on rushing the ball. I think that, that's obviously kind of at this point it seems to be kind of a Big 12 staple. But also just in thinking about NDSU and what that game looked like and talking about what that game was going to do as far as indicating what the rest of the season was going to look like. And obviously that game wasn't perfect by any means, but I thought it's just interesting thinking about the run game and going back to my favorite word right there. But but yeah, the run will definitely be something to look for on the defensive side of the ball. Um Although it it's crazy because with the defense and with how bad their defense is, they're able to get just so many offensive plays off. They like the amount of uh times they're able to throw and run the ball in one game is kind of staggering when just looking at the stat sheet. So it'll be very, I think that's kind of the novelty of this team, I guess, is that uh I don't know. Maybe it's just not that they have so many weapons, but they just have so many chances, I guess. I don't know. It's just this team has just kind of frazzled my mind, um, you know, when trying to look at Texas Tech. But
Yeah, it's a little weird because they're last in the Big 12 in sacks. And they're not some outwardly amazing team at forcing turnovers, though they're third in interceptions and fourth in fumbles recovered. Colorado has, the second most fumbles recovered in the Big 12, and we don't talk about them as some team that's always on offense and always on the front foot of games. Um, but for Texas Tech, I mean, you just look at a little bit deeper into their offense, the defensive numbers. It's the pass defense that really is the key to them giving up so much. They give up 307 pass yards a game. Second worst in the Big 12 is 261. They are by over 50 yards the worst pass defense in the conference. And for Shedeur Sanders, for all those wide receivers that, besides Amarian Miller, besides Terrell Timmons, are completely healthy, you have to be licking your chops if you're Colorado to get kind of to bleed into the secondary. We've seen some, this would be a really great game for the Sean Lewis iteration of Colorado, though, with a lot of nifty pass designs. And while Pat Shermer hasn't been incredibly creative in terms of scheming people open, we've still seen it, and we've still seen a very productive offense over the past 2 weeks that have put together great drives through both the run and the pass. So you can't lean completely into the pass and try to play to Texas Tech's shootout tendencies. Um, but you have a defense that can play man coverage enough against, while Texas Tech has some talent at receiver, I won't discount it. Their quarterback is pretty inconsistent. So, when you have a quarterback, um, like Baron Morton, who has had really good games, and then you've seen him have moments where he can kind of throw a game away, where he fumbled against TCU, and that's how, they fell essentially out of the Big 12 title picture to this point. Obviously, the season's far, far from over, but um, if you can force a mistake, an early mistake on Baron Morton, that's gonna put Tech at a disadvantage just because they leaned so heavily into their run game. They're not really that used to playing from behind. And so for the Buffs to, get out on the front foot and eat into the secondary to force Shador and Travis. And I'm looking for Will Shepherd to have another big game in Wester. I think that's going to be something crucial for the Buffs to win this game, especially in the road environment, to quiet down the fans, because this is going to be a game where it's a little bit more high profile. I mean, we haven't mentioned that we shouldn't be talking about the Buffs as just the Buffs. It's the number 21 Colorado Buffaloes, as the AP released today. Last week being number 23, moving up because some of the lot teams in front of us lost, different teams in front of the Buffs lost. So I think this is a high stakes game. It's going to be on Fox. It's going to have big noon. It's going to have the big game feel, the late afternoon slot. So force you to get off to a good start, to just have an explosive day offensively, especially to, put the Raiders at a disadvantage and put Morton in a position where he has to, where he has to make plays out of structure, where he has to be behind the sticks is going to be the biggest key for me, at least.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think you bring up a good point that we, at least in this podcast so far, we haven't really put in the the weight of this game as far as obviously for the thinking about the Big 12 championship, the Buffs need to win out. And still hope that Iowa State loses another game and see what else happens. But like you said, not only is it on the road, which you touched on a little bit, yeah, but the Buffs are number 21. They, were bowl eligible. They became bowl eligible, and they're, trying to get the nice bowl game that, Coach promised Peggy. So there's all these things that are going into it, and I think, with things like Fox Big Noon Kickoff, I think it's nice that luckily the Buffs, even though the college football world was sick of it, the Buffs got to see, Big Noon Kickoff and ESPN Game Day and all this stuff quite a bit right at the beginning last year. So,
Yep.
so it, that stuff has worked out in their favor as far as I think trying to be able to handle big games and um, it's a Big 12 environment, so it will be something it'll be tough to play in down there in Lubbock, Texas, but I don't think. I don't think it'll be, it's not no Nebraska, I guess. And I think the Buffs will have a better chance. Well, this game will be a lot about composure, and I think they'll be able to do so. And I think this kind of ties into the NDSU game that I brought up a little bit earlier, just because in the be in that game we saw the offense was so explosive on their first two drives, scoring two touchdowns in 8 plays that, and then NDSU was getting the ball back that it kind of worked against the Buffs almost. In
Yeah,
the
for the
the
defense.
offense. Yeah, and so I wonder, I think that may. that may also be a key to, this game as far as, work controlling the time of possession and being able to make sure the ball isn't in Texas Tech's hands as much as it is. Because obviously, as we've seen and as we've talked about a bunch this podcast, they can put up high numbers and they have a high octane offense. So I think if the Buffs can keep the ball in their hands and kind of, you know, dump down I'm trying to, what's the word, but just kind of, slowly work their way up the field and chew up the play clock and the game clock and stuff like that. I think that will, you know, kind of maybe prove also how good this team can be to just show that they, are disciplined. And I think, we've seen glimpses of this in some of their bigger wins in the past week. So, that may be the biggest key for me outside of controlling the run game and some of the other things like you brought up.
Yeah, I mean, it, since you brought that point up, I'd like to thank you because I kind of wasn't really thinking the right way in terms of how the Buffs have gotten here has been through their balance, has been through, having long winding possessions, going to the run game on first and second down, and then kind of working off of it with the pass, with the quick pass game, the, little flares and digs and hitches that we've seen. Because then Shador can be efficient and, just eat into the secondary underneath. So I think, obviously it would be favorable for Colorado to have big plays because, you get out to that early lead. But for the defense to kind of have time to prepare and adjust, it's going to be, you're going to have to see the offense on the field for a long time and, to have enough, to have enough will to keep having to stop Texas Tech's defense. So I think playing to the what's gotten you to the 6-2 record, what kept you in games against Kansas State, what blew out Arizona, what you know carried you to a solid win against Cincinnati. That's going to be what Buffs should do. And I know we didn't want to just talk about football today, but I guess that's kind of what all I have to really add about this game in particular. I know I'll be there, so I'll have plenty. I don't know, I kind of wanted to save some for when I'm in Lubbock for some of the pregame content I had planned. But if you had anything to add just about this game and how the Buffs have fared so far, I'll let you go ahead and then we can get into some other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I was supposed to be at this game, but for me, focus on men's basketball. You know, I don't have anything to say, I guess. But I also don't have too much more to add. Really the only thing that I've kind of just been thinking about a lot is just how Travis Hunter really kind of just I don't know. I'm trying. He didn't, re-enter the conversation because he was never out of it. But obviously, after the Kansas State game, and the Arizona game, not producing in not playing in the second half and not really playing up, that much and then up to his caliber against Arizona. People were, wondering what the Heisman race was going to look like, and obviously, Gene didn't have the best weekend this week. Um, and so, as far as the Heisman race, I know it doesn't matter too much, but the hype does matter in recruiting. It matters just in, how fun and memorable a season can be. It, matters to a town that's only seen one Heisman winner ever in its existence. And so I've just been, not that I necessarily have a point to this, I guess, but it was just cool to see Travis um, just show that the injury isn't going to, didn't slow him down too much, and that he is healthy and kind of bounce back, I guess, against Cincinnati, and now with a bye week, I think that would be really huge for him specifically, but also, the running back room has been banged up a little bit, but the guys who have been injured, along with Isaiah Gustav, who had a great game last week, you know, they've all proven that they can play well and be contributors. So I think excited that Travis was as good as he was last week, and happy that he has the bye week to lead into Texas Tech, but also looking at the other players, specifically the running back room for me, um, with this bye week and kind of getting healthy. I think you know it's just all good signs for the Buffs. I guess is what I'm getting at. But I'm down to talk about other sports if you're down.
Yeah, no, no, definitely you made some good points. I didn't even mention Travis. Um, kind of putting his name right back up at the top. It's probably going to come down to him, Cam Ward, Ashton Genty. Um, so I think, and even Shador, kind of sneakily in the back. Um, you know, maybe waiting for Miami to lose a couple games and then he'll be right there. But um, for the Buffs. It's you mentioned recruiting and all the hype. We saw so many recruits. We were right by him at that Cincinnati game with Juju Lewis and Card Smith and all the rest. We got the flip from, or the Buffs got a flip from the wide receiver from Arizona State. I forget his name. Um, and there may be a flip from Indiana with Byron Baldwin, four-star safety. So I think. On the recruiting trail, this has helped the Buffs a lot. Just putting together a solid win and not just it being the hype and all the attention and the fun celebrations from Travis Hunter. It's been real winning. It's been, you know, um, gutsy wins. It's been gradual improvement in different areas that we struggled a lot in last year. And I think the last part of it that the Buffs need to improve at would be like it's just clock management because we still see it every now and then and little hiccups here and there that have, Cincinnati was close to getting right back into that game. And so for the Buffs, just playing really complete is definitely going to be the goal this week, especially on the road. Um, so I think that's about all we have to say for football. But what's something that is right around the corner, and the reason you won't be going to Lubbock is that basketball is here for both men and the women. Both start their seasons tomorrow as we were recording this on November 3rd. So, what are you looking forward to from the start of the men's season? And then I'll get into the women's side.
I mean, it's a lot of, just what we've talked about a lot on this podcast a lot when we talk about men's basketball. But also what all of, the CU fan base is wondering, what the team itself and Tad Boyle is wondering, and, anybody who cares about Big 12 basketball and just college basketball in general is wondering about this Colorado team is what the hell are they going to look like? Because we haven't, we've seen them scrimmage each other, but what does that mean? We've seen, them playing a um exhibition versus a D3 team. So, what exactly does that mean? I thought it was good signs. I thought, they impressed me more than I kind of expected. But, then again, as I brought up when we talked about it, it's a D3 team. And you look at Elijah Malone and Trevor Baskin, and they were the best players uh, at that, around that level, even if they weren't at that specific level in D3 basketball. But that just tells you exactly where the Buffs stand. So, and as far as how they match up with a team like that, and so we still didn't learn much. And then last weekend was the close scrimmages and whatnot. Um, Colorado played Texas in a close scrimmage last Sunday. Reports were that Texas won 79-75. There were, reports about who scored, who were the leading scorers for each team. How true they are is, uh, you kind of, you know, it's whatever. You'd have to check with the coaches because they're the only ones that really know that stuff. But one thing that we did know is that Colorado turned the ball over a lot against Texas. Tad brought that up um, when talking to him, and they turned the ball over 15 times against Pomona Pitzer, which is not great at all. And as Tad said, like that his son plays on the team, so he watches Pomona Pitzer all the time, and he wasn't sure if Pomona Pitzer forced 15 turnovers all last season. So he was like, the fact that we turned the ball over 15 times against them was ridiculous. And so I'll be looking at how would they take care of the ball in this game, just because in the against Pomona Pitzer we saw a big lineup with Andre Yakimovsky at the two and Assange Ope at the three and Bangot Dak at the four. And so you at least for me, you kind of wonder about ball handling with that lineup, and with the turnover issues that have already been apparent. You kind of, with everyone wondering about what the lineups are going to look like, you just kind of I don't know. There's a lot of question marks, and I think that that's kind of the biggest thing for me is how will they choose who's going to handle the ball? How will they weather the storm if turnovers continue to be an issue as they've looked like or are an issue like they've looked to be in preseason? And then as Tad always emphasizes, and as a lot of coaches emphasize, how will they defend? Obviously, they're tall and long and athletic, but I thought they could have done better against Bona Pitzer. I think there's some guys who can move their feet better. I think defense still has a way to go because it's a new unit that needs to talk still and communicate better. But I think that will be that will definitely be another thing because Tad said it will be that impacts what the lineups will look like and who plays tomorrow is just who can defend and not just give up easy things like backdoor layups and stuff like that, and who will fight through a screen, who will tell a guy that a screen's coming, to be set on him and stuff like that. And I know I've kind of, as we keep saying, we keep going on and, yada yada. But either way, uh, you know, how will they take care of the ball and how will they defend are the two biggest things for me. And you know, I think they'll win pretty handily. Because Eastern Washington, new head coach, they are returning even less minutes from last year than the Buffs. So that tells you the situation that they're in. I think it was 8 transfers and 4 from the non-Division One level. So one of the guys he only played 9 minutes a game last year at at either a JUCO or a D3 or maybe yeah one of the two. He's like one of the transfers. So I don't know if he was a walk-on or what, but there was just some guys that obviously are kind of picked up last second. So I think the Buffs, it will be a easy test for them in this first game. But for me, turnovers, defense.
Yeah, I mean that makes it sound like there's gonna be like 40 combined turnovers in this game. So there's some ugly, yucky basketball to watch, but I think for the Buffs, I mean, you still see a lot of talent sprinkled throughout. It's just kind of how it's all gonna gel. And with for me, I'm looking to see how Julian Hammond can evolve as a point guard because we saw, him have really, really good moments last season in a bench role, especially early in the year, when the offense was kind of clicking and we uh we saw the Buffs make, so many threes a game and the offense just clicking like that. This year, I don't expect it to be the case. So when that's the case, is it going to be Hammond shot chucking, or is it going to be Hammond still playing within the flow of the offense, getting others involved? Um, and I think hopefully for the Buffs' sake, it can be more of the latter. Just because there are guys that we don't know what to expect from, but we know that can really play, like a Trevor Baskin, like a Yakimovsky. Um, so when um you have a point guard like Hammond, it's gonna be like what Boyle said is that at the presser was I think it was something like we've trusted him a lot, so he's put the trust back in for us. What do you remember exactly?
I don't remember exactly what he says. Tad, I love Tad and I love his answers, but that man speaks so much, and I've talked to him so much that for you to ask me if I recall a certain Tad quote is kind of like asking me to pick a needle out of a haystack, I think.
That's fair. No, I mean, but I know that, Tad is putting a lot of faith in Hammond this year. I'm bringing him back, not really addressing point guard in the portal, just going young with it, getting Crawford, getting Casares to fill in the guard room along with RJ, who'll be more the two, obviously. But putting a lot of faith in Hammond to be a leader and to, you know, distribute, initiate all the point guard things will be his responsibility. So that's the player I'm going to be watching if I'm able to catch any of that game because I don't it's on ESPN Plus.
Yeah, just like a lot of their games are like pretty
Yeah.
like I would have to look at their schedule, but I'm pretty sure it's
I'll
like,
definitely
like
try to catch it.
26 of their games are all on
It'll be
ESPN.
overlapping with um my watching of the women's basketball game, which is at 5:30, an hour and a half before that, so maybe I'll catch the latter half of the men's game. But for the women, they play Wyoming on the road on the Mountain West Network, which I found out I can watch. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to watch it, but the Mountain West Network is the way it's going to go. So, going on the road, the Buffs last year 8-4 in true road games, and I think all of those road losses were against ranked conference opponents. Um, I think, yeah, I think it was the Utah game, UCLA, um, Oregon State, and USC. So. That those are all teams besides Utah that the Bucks won't have to play this year. Though it's hard to kind of take last year's stats and transfer them onto this team because it's so different. Um, but with Frida coming back, I did like a lot of what I saw in the exhibition, especially without Frida. Still putting up 91 points in any competition against any opponent, despite mines being D2, is going to be, going to be a strength. The offense looked somewhat competent, especially moving the ball around. They kept moving the ball around. They just didn't let it stick. A lot of what we saw last year in the half court for the Buffs offensively is that the ball would stick and they would just they'd get reliant on the three ball. They get reliant on Jalen having to drive or Nettie getting good post position. They were very reliant on one thing at a particular time for a particular stretch of a game. But now with the Buffs, with a lot of multi-skilled, versatile players that can play very team first, it's not going to be one player playing hero ball or one player, one central focus of the offense at a time. I think Frida will definitely be that when she's in for at points. But for the most part, this is a team that's going to play with a lot of energy and a lot of um, selflessness. And from what I saw, it didn't look too bad. Like the growing pains didn't seem to be there until about the third quarter. And like maybe last couple minutes of the first half because they had one turnover until midway through the second quarter. And, it was just like some errant pass on a fast break. It was just like, oh, okay. Johanna Teder, just threw it high. Though then, as the game went on, it started to get a little bit clunky and the Buffs didn't have to deal with anybody over the height of 6'2". So definitely something to watch is just how they can deal with size and physicality. Um, it's going to be a lot on some of the new front court pieces like Ian Johnson and Jade Masagayo to deal with that. Um, so for the Buffs, I think, you know, a lot of faith has been put in these returning seniors in Kindlewetta to initiate, in Frida to continue to shoot the lights out, to diversify her offense, and in Sarah to just be a leader and to rebound the ever living crap out of the ball. Um, so I think for Wyoming, they were a decent team against Power Five competition last year. They beat BYU, who were they used to be a Mountain West team, and then they eventually moved to the Big 12. And so I'm just looking to see how the offense runs through Frida, and if it does, because everything that's I've seen, this offense is going to be Frida centric. It's going to be, you know, Kindlewetta having the green light to shoot, and then the rest of these players like Leo Garza, like Neimer do, they're going to fill in plenty gaps. They're going to have to do a lot to do the dirty work and put up points. So if Garzin can be what we saw against Mines, if Neimer Do can be what she was against Mines, I think the offense will continue to run. The Buffs will take care of business. Just because the Mountain West hasn't historically been a good conference for women's basketball, and I think getting off to a good start is definitely foreseeable. Um, but I think it's just going to be about how the offense runs that will really tell the tale, or clue into how the Buffs will perform the rest of the way.
Yeah, that all makes sense. And you bring up like a lot of good points. And I don't know, I guess I obviously can't really confirm nor deny because I'm not, covering the team as in depth as you are, kind of in the same way that I am with the men's team. But from what I've seen and, from keeping up with your coverage and your content, I think all those points make sense. And, I don't really have too much more to add to that side of things. I think, Wyoming is a solid pick for a first game. And I think, yeah, like you said, it's a good chance to get off to a 1-0 start to the season, especially, a season that, might not feature as many wins as the past two have. And so yeah, I think it makes sense that JR is gonna, feed her returning players and Frida and Kendall, especially in Frida's last year and Kendall, she has a does she have a year of eligibility after this one?
No, this is it. This is it
Okay,
for
so
all the
yeah, so
returners.
all the return is leaving after this year, so that makes sense. I mean, kind of, I think is a way of kind of paying them back.
Yep.
But it will be very interesting to see how these transfers adapt. I think Julio Garzón will be um is one of the transfers that we've seen decent amount of, although still kind of weird with that Villanova year. That was
Yeah, I
so.
mean, we know she can score. I think that's the biggest thing. Um, I'll just really quick on her. I think she could be the second best player on this team by a sizable gap. Just because she'll be able to play next to Frida. And just looking at her shot and just the way she can be comfortable on a lot of different areas of the floor, she reminds me of Frida in a little bit of a way. I mean, she's another player just with 1 year, not really for the future, just for, just a, you know, what's the word for it?
Just like,
Stopgap, kind of a stopgap player in the front in the wing room. But she's a killer. She's cold. I think we saw her make the Cheryl Miller small forward of the year watch list, but did I mute? I don't know. Frida didn't make that list though. So um I think she could be a stud, and that's going to be huge because I didn't see a ton of aggressiveness from Kendall. in the exhibition, even against Mines, a team that had no size, a team that had no rim deterrence at all, had every lane possible you could that could open up. They did play a little aggressively defensively at first, but it was just a lot of moving the ball and no Kindle really not taking initiative to that green light that Payne has talked about. So I'm gonna see if that can pick up as the season goes on, but with Garzon and having her next to Frida is gonna be a pretty nice shooting duo that could. We saw what the Buffs offense would look like when Frida and Maddie Nolan were on their game at the same time. So with Garzon added to the fold, it could be really, really good.
Yeah, no, that she's been what like of all the transfers, I feel like she's been the one that I've been looking at the most just as far as, what she'll produce offensively, specifically from the 3-point line. But just to kind of what I was saying, um, is just that, we've seen Lee Arguello and what she does and how do you pronounce her name, the Washington State transfer?
Johanna Teder,
Yeah,
Johanna, yeah,
Johanna Teter.
Teder with the
Teter,
D.
okay. Yeah, but she's coming off an ACL tear. And so she even though we've seen stuff from her, there's a few question marks there and Jade Masagao's still a very young player. Um, Jojo Nowori, uh very interesting player.
I don't know if
Um,
she'll play, to be honest with you. I think she's not completely recovered. She wasn't even with the team for the exhibition,
hmm,
which I found fascinating. I asked after the game about like where she's at, and it's just that she's still recovering. And every time I've seen her in practice, she's in a green non-contact vest. She's not really in the scrimmaging and everything. So in Worry, I think could be like a mid-season piece. I think it could be she could end up being really necessary to at least have there for some size. She's 6'5", which is the tallest player the Buffs have had since like 2017. So um yeah, but I don't picture her really playing until probably conference play, if at all
gotcha.
this year.
Hmm. Well, that's interesting. But either
Yeah,
way,
it wasn't just a knee thing. She had like a blood clot or something in her leg, which is a bummer. And then also Tadair was an Achilles injury actually, so that's even
oh,
more of a
Achilles,
question
that's what it
mark.
was. Yeah.
I actually got that wrong too.
Hmm.
I thought it was ACL.
But yeah, no, either way, just um a few players that are somewhat unproven or going through or kind of going through a hump in their career who came through the transfer portal. And so uh I think it would just be kind of fun to see who emerges. Um and at least for me that's kind of what I'll be looking for. While you're for the men's side of things, where you're looking for Julian Hammond and kind of how he does after sitting passenger for, probably not even passenger, more in the back seat these past 3 years. Uh, but now that he's running the show and you're watching him, I think from, myself, I've seen Frida cook and play at the top of her game. Kindle not as much. But how will these new additions, we haven't even talked about the freshmen yet and how solid they've looked. But how will the transfers be just with these interesting stories is that's who I'll be looking for. But besides that, I don't have too much to add. I think as I
I'll
said
just
earlier and as you said, it will be a solid game or a fairly easy test against Wyoming.
Yeah, I'll just do a tidbit on the freshman, like you mentioned. I mean, Tabitha Betson started the exhibition. She's going to be, I don't know if she'll start when Frida's back. Just because I'm thinking they're going to be, I mean, unless they wanted to play more big with her at the 4 and then Mascai at the 5. But I don't know if she'll start full time, but if she does, I mean, that's such a great honor to have as a freshman. And she looked so much farther along. She didn't play great. Her jump shot looked really hitchy. Um, and it wasn't a beautiful first game for a freshman by any means, but she looks farther along in just her feel for the game. And the way she was able to rebound, she was able to get a nice putback, using her size to her advantage and just keeping the ball moving. Her vision really stood out to me. And another freshman I thought looked pretty solid was Grace Oliver. Came in at the end, provided some size, and I think she scored like 6 points in 4 minutes. So made the most of her opportunity. Lova, Lagerlid, and Aaron Powell looked pretty jittery. Lova had two of those travels where you like get the ball, the other player's closing out and you're trying to attack it, but then you take a step back and you're traveling. That happened twice, and I think back-to-back possessions for her. But then they gave Erin a lot of run, so maybe Erin finds her way into the rotation eventually. So the freshmen look good overall. Tabitha, the best of the four. As expected, as advertised. But yeah, overall, the transfers, I think those were the big standouts against Mines, and those will be what can power the Buffs into Big 12 contention.
Yeah, so I don't know. Obviously, yeah, excited about Tabs and what she'll bring, but the other freshmen as well. And so, I'll at least for me, I know I'll begin to, more men's basketball and in the heyday episode dropping either probably tomorrow morning, I think, or Monday morning, just for depending on when this episode drops. Um, but either way, that I think I'm good on basketball, and we can unfortunately move on to soccer.
Yeah, no, it's a bummer. I don't know if it's over for sure, but it's gonna be a hard ask to see if the Buffs can make the tournament. Obviously, getting that really nice moment with Ava Priest's game-winning goal against Utah in the Big 12 tournament first round. Getting that nice moment, having the number three play on the Sports Center's top 10 from last night was also cool with Ava. We see the flip throw in all the time, but when that actually results in a goal, it's pretty special. Um,
And it was a heck of a header by Hope Leba.
oh
Like
yeah,
it was perfectly placed.
yeah, no, definitely. And there were some nice moments, but with having to run into TCU that early, it's you would have to really battle. And while the Buffs did for about halfway through, it just wasn't enough. And we saw it didn't go the same way, thankfully, as our game against CCU did last time, or the game against CCU did last time. But the Horned Frogs are a tough beat this year.
Yeah, I mean they were the top seed in the tournament for a reason. And that's because they've been consistent throughout the whole year, and as we see across all sports with Colorado teams, consistency is the biggest thing that they lack, and that's why they lack success in a lot of cases. And TCU, they've been solid the whole year. Of course, didn't win in as dominating a fashion as they did the first game around. But you know it was very interesting just to see the once again a goal within the first 2 minutes of the game. uh and the Colorado fan, after seeing the first game is like, oh, I guess Colorado's going to give up 3 goals straight away. Now that they scored, but they didn't. And it was just kind of unfortunate that at least the goal that put TCU ahead won. Um, came off just a handball after TCU got deep in the box and tried to cross it, and it just hit Faith Leba's hand. While she was trying to play defense, and just kind of a situation where there was nothing you could do, and then it sent Seven Castaigne to take the shot, and she was the girl who had 4 goals and an assist in the first game. So, not exactly who Jordy Nidus and the Buffs wanted to see in that situation. And right on cue, Castaigne Nidus picked the correct side, diving to her right, where Castaigne picked, and I think Nidus even may have gotten a finger on it, but Castaigne still stuck it by, and kind of from then on, with just the way the nature of the game had gone, and how solid of a team TCU was, at least watching it, and seeing the energy from the bus, they didn't give up, but it was like, I don't know, you kind of knew that the game was probably over, and then of course the TCU putting the dagger on a I don't know on a nice shot from outside the box, and that was all she wrote. So now
Yeah.
it's time for NCAA tournament consideration, I guess, as the Buffs sit.
You'll hope they can sneak in there.
Yeah, I mean they sit
So I
in the low 40s, I think, in the NCAA RPI. I'm not sure what else goes into the soccer selection process. I know
I
it's
know
not
it
as
was kind of on
in
the
depth,
border last year too. Though it was kind of
like opposite
like,
situation.
oh, right, where the Buffs ended strong. After another kind of mid to late season slump. But the the way this will go, it's gonna suck for the Buffs no matter what. I think just, having that good of a start to the season and then slumping until you're basically out of reach to at least, to have at least a decent path through the tournament. It's gonna be tricky. So for Shira, for all those seniors and everything, well, obviously, Nidus will, I think Nidus will most likely be back for another year. Um, but for a lot of the midfielders and the offensive players, that could be it. That could be all she wrote. But Shira being the all-time leader, breaking the all-time program record in goals, and then Nidus winning Big 12 goalkeeper of the year. We saw it was Faith Labo that made all first team Big 12, and it was who was it that made all the second team? Was it Hayward?
If I would have to pick anybody off the roster, it would probably be her, but I cannot tell
And
you.
then Jace Holly being a nice spark up front, getting the all freshman team. So there's some, bright spots for the future, whether if this is it. Um, so I think, going forward, those will have to be the pieces that are built off of Nidus and Holly, Ava Priest as well, the Labas. Um, so I think, just for the Buffs going forward, still a season that you can take a lot away from and be proud of. Though it didn't end the way you'd want it and envision it, especially after that really good start that got them ranked as high as they had been in 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. If you told me that how this season, or at least how the regular season ended, I guess, was how this soccer season was going to end. At every single point, I would have probably thought that you were crazy, just because I don't know, with the situation that the Buffs had coming into this year, with the amount of returning players that they had, as well as the new additions, of course, like Jace Hawley, was great all season, and she's a true freshman, so that was fantastic to see. And so heading into the year, you wouldn't have expected the Buffs to hit this type of slump. And then as you mentioned, the great beginning to the year that led to the highest ranking in years, and then all of a sudden, just nothing. I mean, that Big 12 win was their only win, or the Big 12, the first win of the Big 12 tournament was their only win in the month of October. So, and it came on October 30th. So, I mean, it was just I don't know, just completely unexpected. I guess that can just show you how how detrimental a loss like that TCU loss can be for a team or a program. Um, but uh, but yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think like if there's anything more to add. Just because at this point it's up to the fate of the selection um committee for the tournament and what's going to happen there. And at least for me, I think, that's kind of it for soccer and maybe that, maybe like it for soccer as far as, talking about it for, Scobo Sportscast this year.
Yeah, it would be a bummer because there are a lot of really, really positive takeaways for the Buffs this season, and not being able to talk about them anymore would bum me out. Not having to talk about probably the best female athlete on campus in Jordan Knight, um, at least
And
this year.
and it's crazy just because like as you mentioned, Shabra James as well, like it's
Right,
not like, it's, probably, like you said, the best female athlete on campus, plus another one, literally a CU women's soccer legend. Uh,
right.
and yeah, she may be gone, which is, for us, the first, well, next year will be the, our first year without seeing Shira James with the CU uniform and, leading the, leading the team in goals. So it'll be weird.
It will be weird. Yeah, no, that's about all I have to say. I guess volleyball would be the only major sport we've left out, and they don't exist. I don't know if we should really talk about them unless you had something to add about their slide, because I don't know.
Well,
It's been a while since we've recorded a pod, but I don't know if they've won a set since then,
yeah,
let alone a game.
last time they won a set was 3 matches ago against BYU. But yeah, no, they got swept against TCU and Baylor. Though both ranked teams. The Big 12 is quite the solid volleyball conference. But Buffs are on a 5-game losing skid and will play Utah this Wednesday. So, hoping to get back in the win column in this last month of the season. Though with only about 5, 6 matches left, I think, before the Big 12 tournament. So, I don't know. Not a lot to, look forward to there either. And, you know, yeah, I know. I know Jesse Mahoney doesn't like to talk after the losses. So, you know, I don't, really see a point in talking much either.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to mention. I don't want to end on that kind of a negative note.
Well, I mean, yeah, no, well, I mean, to make it more positive, obviously we have basketball, tomorrow starting up as we talked about, so that would be good.
Cannot wait.
And
Cannot wait.
volleyball, hopefully they can, get back in the win column on Wednesday. In basketball, they don't, you know, they start tomorrow, but the men's team they also play Friday, so they'll play Northern Colorado. um, which should be fun, but hopefully we drop another episode before then.
I
And
might maybe I'll we'll do a pod after the Texas Tech game. Also like an instant reaction sort of deal.
yeah, I'd be down.
If I could I'll be there, and I wish you could be joining me, but to at least make you feel like you're there for a little bit. Whenever you have time, Saturday evening, we can do something.
Yeah, totally. I'm down because we I think we did something similar for the Pac-12 tournament
Yep.
last year, and I know that was some solid. So yeah, I'd be down to do that again, but hopefully that's the positive note we were looking for, I guess. Um, if that's good for you, that's good for me.
Yep.
So as always, I'm Oliver Hayes.
I'm Harrison Simeon.
And you heard it here first. Peace.